Well, welcome to the John Quintero Show on YouTube, San Diego Sports Talk. We're going to get after it today, and we got a lot to cover today. The big news, Mike Shildt going to get a new 2-year contract extension with our San Diego Padres. I want your comments on that. We have one guest coming up today at 10 o'clock. A great guy, very well thought of in our San Diego community. Bryce Miller, columnist for the San Diego Union Tribune, going to join me at 10 o'clock this morning. And again, very much appreciate you tuning in. This show's gaining ground in a hurry. And would ask you maybe if you haven't already, or maybe a first-time viewer, if you would subscribe to our channel. Very much appreciate that. We're trying to grow it and trying to get as best San Diego Sports Talk out to you fans we possibly can. Reminder on Friday, John Maffey from the Union Tribune will join us. We're going to talk with John on Friday about the Padres. We're going to talk a little Aztec football with him, and we're certainly going to talk about the first Friday night of high school football playoffs. So that'll be on Friday, but today we got Bryce Miller coming up at 10 o'clock, and we're going to dive right into it. As always, we encourage you to type in your comments, and we'll get to as many as we possibly can. You can also follow me on Facebook at John Quintero and on X at Coach Quintero 44. Well, we know baseball free agency is going, and we're going to get into that. But, one of my topics today was going to be Mike Shildt. And Mike Shildt has really done an incredible job, not only with the Padres, he did a damn good job with the Cardinals. And I think, I don't know what went on there with the Cardinals, but I think they made a mistake. Mike Shildt may do things a little bit different than some managers, but you know what? The bottom line, he gets results. And he got a lot of results here in San Diego this year. Number one, by getting along with the general manager, that was number one. That's been the big bugaboo with the Padres is, whoever they hire, whether it's Andy Green or Jace Tingler or Bob Melvin, get along with the general manager and vice versa. Well, Mike Shildt really wanted this job very, very badly. He wanted this job in the worst way after being let go by the Cardinals after doing a great job. In fact, I went back before this came down regarding Mike Shildt getting the contract extension, and we knew he was going to, and it'll take him through the 2027 season. We knew that he had earned this, but he's done so many good things here in the short time here in San Diego. I think he also gave him a little bit of an advantage that had been around the organization for a couple of years, and he saw what was going on, and he built relationships with his players, and he built relationships with the coaching staff and the front office, obviously, to get the job. And he earned this contract extension. Now, I had said all along that you had to get him a contract extension before spring training. I thought they would give him a 1-year extension, take him through the 2026 season, because that would match up with A.J. Preller. And A.J. Preller right now probably sitting in pretty good shape, especially if the Padres make the postseason again next year, of getting a contract extension. I just thought you'd match it up, your manager with your general manager, but they're going to reach out to 2027. The other thing, and he deserves this as well, he was probably in the bottom third of paychecks for major league managers. Now he's going to move up middle, or, maybe in the top 10. I doubt that, but he's going to get a nice raise, and he earned it. But, you go back and look at Mike Shildt's trek to San Diego. He had that long career with the St. Louis Cardinals. And then finally, he gets an opportunity to manage at the big league level. He took over for Mike Matheny back in 2018, led the team to a 41-28 mark. They were third in the NL Central that year, but they showed significant improvement in the short time that he took over. Then in 2019, he was the National League Manager of the Year. His team went 91-71, and they won the NL Central title. 2020, 58 games, a pandemic year. They won 30-28, second in the NL Central. The reason they only played 58 was they'd already had a spot secured. They didn't need to play a couple of makeup games. And then in 2021, they went 90-72, second in the NL Central. And, he got booted after the playoffs. Now, his playoff record with Cardinals was not great. They were 4-9. But, they ran up against the Atlanta Braves, and, they had some tough teams to play. They went 4-9. But overall, in his time with the Cardinals, he was 252 and 199, a 55 .9 winning percentage, 5.59. That's a hell of a record for a major league manager. And philosophical differences with him and John Mozeliak. Well, how has that worked out for the Cardinals the last 3 years? It's worked out very well for Mike Shildt. You know, he unceremoniously got dumped by the Cardinals. Philosophical differences. Well, John Mozeliak's going to get dumped by the Cardinals after this next year. They've already named his replacement. He'll be in place for one more season, and then they've got another gentleman taking over, and Mozeliak will move on to retirement, I guess. But Mike Shildt earned this extension. He really did. And, you know, there's some things that I could say, you know, maybe he went to some relievers a little bit too early, but, you know, that's a second guess. There were nights where I first guessed him, but at the end of the day, he did a hell of a job. And the bottom line is winning baseball games. And Mike Shildt had the second best record in the history of the Padres franchise with 93 wins. So let's keep it rolling. Padres got a lot of work to do, though. They got a lot of work. They've got a, oh man, AJ Preller has his work cut out for him because you and I and all the other Padre fans, we're expecting big things in 2025. I'm still devastated that the Padres didn't beat the Dodgers. And you know what? The night of the World Series clinching game after the Dodgers had won it, and they interviewed Kike Hernandez, and he said, yeah, we beat the best team in baseball in the Padres. And then, you know, we had to take on the red hot Mets. And then we took down the great New York Yankees. He called the Padres the best team in baseball. That just was like putting the knife in and twisting it. For me, at least. I don't know about you. You tell me what you thought about that. And then I saw Dave Roberts the other day on a Mookie Betts podcast talking about, hey, it all came down to whoever was going to win the series between the Dodgers and the Padres. You know, we felt if we could get by them, we could win this thing. And that's exactly what happened. Padres missed a golden opportunity. I mean, they had a chance to put their foot on the throat of the Dodgers, and they didn't let it happen. I'm more upset about that than anything because the Padres, they had the ability to do it. And they were doing a good job. And then all of a sudden, boom, they forgot how to hit. And the Dodgers notched it up a couple of levels, and the Padres couldn't maintain it. I'm still amazed. 24 straight innings without scoring? Are you kidding me? That's beyond belief. Okay, so Mike Shildt, it's going to be announced probably, you know, later today or tomorrow. He's going to get a 2-year extension. He'll be here through 2027. Congratulations to Mike Shildt. He did it the old-fashioned way, folks. He earned it. I like that. Okay, Ruben Niebla. And I think most of you know I'm a big Ruben Niebla fan. I think he came in after spending 20 years with Cleveland. And he was there with the Cleveland Indians, not the Cleveland Guardians, just so everybody's on the same page on that. He's a guy that, you know, I followed a little bit. I knew a little bit about him with Cleveland. But it's a great story. And I love the story. I'm a big, probably because when I was in junior college, I had to go down and play at Imperial Valley College down in El Centro. And I've got a very soft spot in my heart for the folks down in the Valley. I mean, good people down there, really good people. They're big into high school football. They're big into amateur sports, and they love athletics and they love athletes. And I knew Rudy Cienez when he was here with the Padres, a great guy. Paul Cerna, who played in the big leagues with Seattle. I played against Paulie when he played for IVC, and I was playing at Maricosta back in the mid to late 70s. But Ruben Niebla from down there in El Centro, Calexico High School. He actually went to the same college that Paul Cerna did. Paul went to IVC, then he went to Azusa Pacific, and Ruben went to Azusa Pacific. And then he spent some time in the minor leagues, pitching for Montreal organization, Dodger organization. He pitched independent ball. And then he got a job in 2001 working for Cleveland. And he was with Cleveland for 20 years. And he did all kinds of things with Cleveland. I mean, the first year he worked at all the different levels of minor league baseball, kind of learned his craft. And from 2001 to 2009, Ruben Niebla was working in the minor leagues, toiling, not making big money, but working and learning his craft. And then in 2010, he became a major league coaching assistant. at the big league level, got to put on a big league uniform. Then on August 9th of 2012, he was named the interim pitching coach. So he got his first opportunity to be the pitching coach in a big league ball club. And then after the 2012 season, they had a lot of changes, but Ruben stayed with the organization. And from 2013 to 2019, he was a pitching coordinator. And the pitching coordinator position is not an easy position. You're talking to all the, number one, you're hiring pitching coaches at all the different levels. You're working with them and giving them feedback, going out and evaluating all your minor league pitchers, coming up with throwing programs. So he learned from the grassroots of professional baseball, and he'd been a pitcher, so he knew kind of the way it worked. But this guy has worked his craft and really developed an incredible reputation. And he had a great reputation before he ever came here. I mean, even after he got here 2 years ago, he'd been here with the Padres 3 years. He was with Bob Melvin for 2, and this last year with Mike Shildt. But Corey Kluber, a 2-time Cy Young Award winner, said, I wouldn't have won those Cy Youngs without Ruben Niebla. I mean, those are incredible statements. And the same thing with guys here in San Diego. I mean, Blake Snell will tell you. He had a great reputation and working relationship with Kyle Snyder, the pitching coach in Tampa Bay. And, you know, he'd come through the organization and there was a lot of loyalty there. And I think for Blake Snell, it took him a while to get comfortable here. Larry Rothschild was the pitching coach, then Ruben took over his second year. And they built a great relationship. And Blake Snell wins the Cy Young in a Padre uniform in 2023. So Ruben has done it at every level. And now he's getting it done at the big league level. And I do think Ruben, having talked to him a little bit, I think he would love to have an opportunity to be a major league manager. But his family, they live here part-time in San Diego. And, of course, they have their permanent home out in the valley. Good people. Stephanie, beautiful lady, his wife, coached softball for years down in the Imperial Valley. Great family. And I want to see him get a nice contract. I think really what they ought to do, now that Mike Shildt is getting that 2-year extension, and Ruben doesn't have a contract. His contract ended when the Padres got beat at Dodger Stadium. I would give him a 3-year contract. Okay. I would take him through the time that Mike Shildt is locked up. I'd give him a contract through 2027. I'd give him a nice 3-year deal and a nice pay raise. You know what? Just like Mike Shildt, he's done it for 3 years here. He's earned it. Give me your comments on that. You know, Darren Bosley, who coached here, the pitchers for years and years, one of the best in the business. And, you know, he was here forever, it seemed like. And then Larry Rothschild came in, things kind of unraveled. And not because Larry wasn't a good pitching coach, he was a very good pitching coach. I just don't think he jived with the front office and the way he did things and the way they wanted things done. Obviously, Ruben Niebla jives very well with the front office, and he's also gotten a lot of results. And he's got some great leaders at the top of the rotation with Darvish and Musgrove, and now you got guys like Michael King, who is a sponge who wants to get better. Dylan Cease, you got some guys that can make you look good, but he's earned it. And I think you give Ruben Niebla a nice contract. Okay. We're going to jump down. We're going to talk about some of the Padre free agents. And again, I want to remind everyone, we're going to have Bryce Miller coming up at 10 o'clock, and we're going to talk Padres with him. We're going to talk Aztec basketball. They open up tonight against UCSD. Should be an interesting game. I mean, UCSD last year, they won 21 games. They finished number 2 in the Big West last year. They're eligible for the NCAA tournament this year, but they got a lot of new people, and the Aztecs have a lot of new people. We have no idea what to expect out of the Aztecs. And by the way, I will be doing, I'm not doing their game on Saturday night, but I'll be doing all the rest of the home games for UCSD on ESPN Plus. So that if you'd like college basketball, myself and Steve Quiz will be doing the UCSD basketball games on ESPN Plus. And I'm looking forward to it. I did them last year, a lot of fun. And Coach Olin doing a great job building that program over at UCSD. Also, USD tonight, they get underway against Rider. Rider got beat 85-50 the other night by UCLA at Pauley Pavilion. So college basketball getting underway tonight in San Diego. And we'll talk with Bryce Miller about that. We're going to talk to him a little bit about Aztec football. They play Friday night against New Mexico. We're going to obviously talk about the turf situation at Snapdragon Stadium. So that'll be coming up. Okay, I want to get to Profar. Yesterday, because we do these shows Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I feel like I'm working 5 days now because I like to. I'm really big into preparation, and I'm really big in my yellow tablets and writing stuff down. And I spent a lot of time yesterday uh, working on free agency. And what I found out regarding the Padres was kind of crazy. It was kind of crazy. And I want your opinion on this. And that's why we have this chat box. I want to hear from you on this. But Jerks and Profar, there are going to be a lot of teams coming after him. Teams that have money and teams that don't have money, but they seem to have money available maybe for a certain position. Okay. This morning I heard that Kansas City is very interested in Jerks and Profar. The what they're talking about now. See, for me, Profar is 32 years of age. He's coming off a career year, and he loves playing in San Diego. It seems like this is where he's really done his best work. I mean, he started out with Texas. We know about him being the top prospect in baseball for a couple of years. Then he had a real bad injury. It set him back. Then he got traded to Oakland, was there for a couple of years, comes to San Diego, does pretty well here, opts out of a long-term deal the final couple of years, signs with Colorado for a little over $8 million, didn't go well, got DFA'd in 2023. Padres bring him back on a minor league contract late in the year, put him on the major league roster, then sign him to a one-year deal with a bunch of incentives, and he reached all the incentives. He got to about $2.5 million after signing a one-year, $1 million deal. He had about $1.5 million incentives. He got reached all of them. Did a great job. But now they're saying Profar at 32 years of age, and I'm going to ask you Padre fans right now, do you think the Padres can afford this? Padres are going to have to spend some money, but they need some pitching. They need a catcher. Profar right now is projected by a lot of people to get a 3-year deal at $45 million. Can you pay him $15 million a year for 3 years? So age 33, 34, and 35. Another guy you're paying until the mid 30s. I'm going to ask you, it's in the chat. Give me a take on that. Okay, now we'll get to Ha-Seong Kim. Now, from what I'm hearing on Ha-Seong Kim, and a lot of it has to do with the labrum tear and the shoulder surgery, and you don't know exactly when he's going to get rolling. They're saying now he's projected in the neighborhood of 3 years, $24 million, so $8 million a year. That's what he was going to make here in San Diego if he'd have come back. He got a $2 million buyout. Maybe would the Padres want to go 3 years, $24 million, $8 million? I mean, that's what they were going to pay him in that mutual option. But he opted out of. So give me your take on that. I think the Ha-Seong Kim ship has sailed. I don't think they're going to bring him back. I really don't. Okay, now, here's the one that you got to tell me about. Okay, and Dara, we need to focus on pitching this offseason. Totally agree. You got to have pitching. You got to have pitching. You got to have a whole lot of it because guys are going to break down. Kyle Higashioka, I believe, off the top of my head, he made $2.4 million last year. He's a backup catcher. He's going to be 35 years of age in April. Can he repeat what he did this last year? And a guy like Higashioka, I'm a big fan of. I love catchers, especially backup catchers, because it's hard, man. It's a tough job. Not playing and then having to go in there and catch these guys and be at the top of your game and then have to swing the bat when you get 5 or 6 at bats, maybe a week at the most. But Higashioka, because of Luis Camposano not being able to get the job done, he had to catch a lot. And he was okay. I mean, he made some errors and some balls got by him. I mean, he's not Johnny Bench or Pudge Rodriguez or Carlton Fisk or Thurman Munson, okay? But he's a nice player. And by the way, catching for the most part at the major league level, in my opinion, fundamentally is at an all-time low. Okay, we can talk about the one knee thing to try to steal the low strike. Let me tell you, good umpires aren't going to fall for that trick. They really aren't. but I'll let people believe what they want to believe. But when you're on third base, you better get in a good athletic position to be able to block the baseball. But Higashioka, who off the top of my head made 2.4 million last year, now he's a free agent. There's projections out there, and I don't have any teams yet. And again, this will be what the market will bear. 2 years at 15 million. He made 2.4. He going to get like a $5 million raise because he hit 17 home runs, 7 more than his career high, and he's going to be 35 years of age in April. I can't give him 15 million for 2 years. I can't give him 7.5 million. I just can't do that. I've got to find a way to make a trade. And are you going to bring back Luis Camposano? How about Elias Diaz, who I think you probably move on from, unless you get him for a song? I'm not paying these guys 7 or 8 million to catch when they're backup type guys. You got to make a deal. And I'll be honest with you, I try to trade Cronenworth. I try to do some kind of blockbuster deal and trade Cronenworth and get a catcher in here. And even if I had to pick up some of the money to trade Cronenworth, I think you got to move on. You got to get better at first base. Defensively, Jake's fine. Offensively, I got to move on. You know, I'd rather maybe take a shot at Paul Goldschmidt on a 1-year deal for 15 million than pay Cronenworth. And I know Goldschmidt, 35, long in the tooth, didn't have a great year with St. Louis, but a guy that takes care of his body, a guy that I think would fit in very well in San Diego. I wouldn't be sorry to see Paul Goldschmidt come here, a guy that's a proven RBI guy. Put him in a good lineup, have a little protection. His numbers may bounce back, and I think he's a man of pride, and I think he'd work his tail off. But getting back to the cat, I can't give Higashioka 2 years, 15 million. I can't give him a $5 million raise because he had one good year in the big leagues, swinging the bat. I mean, seriously, some of these guys, they have one good year out of like 5, and they get this huge raise, which is amazing to me. Just amazing to me. Okay, and Tanner Scott, I don't think there's a chance in all he's coming back. I mean, most of the projections I'm getting right now, 4 years, 56 million. And you know what? He did a nice job here in San Diego. He's earned a nice contract. Padres can't go down the road with him right now. I don't think, in my opinion. Okay, the one guy I want to get into, and then we'll track down Bryce Miller, and that's Blake Snell. I think all of you that have followed me on my radio show, you go back to after the World Series in, I guess it would have been 2020, after the Dodgers won the World Series over Tampa Bay. I came on the radio the day after the World Series, or whatever day, the first time I was on after the World Series. And I said, you know what? AJ Preller needs to call Tampa Bay and talk to them about acquiring Blake Snell. I also, at that point in time, knew a couple of guys were available in Pittsburgh, Joe Musgrove and Stephen Brault, both guys from Grossmont High School. Now, things haven't worked out for Stephen Brault. He had Tommy John surgery and his career faded away. He actually went back to the minor leagues, kind of like David Peralta, and tried to swing the bat, but I think he's out of baseball now at all levels. But, you know, I said, go get Blake Snell and go get Joe Musgrove. I was always a big fan of Joe, and I'm even a bigger fan now, knowing all the things I know about Joe and what a great competitor he is. But I really wanted to see Blake Snell come here. I guess because when I was coaching, I was very fortunate to have some great left-handers that pitched for me in college. And I've got this love affair with left-handers, good left-handers. And Blake Snell has incredible stuff. And, you know, originally Blake Snell, who opted out of his deal with San Francisco, he signed the 2-year deal at $62 million. This past year, and remember, he got a late start. And his numbers early on were just putrid. In fact, when you look at his numbers after the late start and where he finished were amazing. He ended up making 20 starts. And he was 5-3 with a 3.12 ERA. But early on, I mean, he couldn't get anybody out. He was all over the place. Jordan Montgomery never recovered from signing late over in Arizona. That's why he opted into his contract. And Ken Kendrick, the owner, said that was the biggest mistake of his life, signing Jordan Montgomery. And then Montgomery ends up opting in to the contract. But Blake Snell ended up having a great year. I mean, his numbers were fantastic. for when he pitched. 104 innings, 65 hits, 38 runs, 36 earned runs. He walked 44, had 145 strikeouts in 104 innings, and gave up only 6 home runs. And, he was so bad at the beginning, he couldn't get anybody out. And I was looking at those numbers the other day, and I'm going, wow, how did he turn this thing around? But then you go and take a look at what he did with the Padres. In 3 years with the Padres, 83 starts, 29 and 25 with a 3.15 ERA. His numbers were off the chart. And let's face it, Blake Snell can be very frustrating. There were nights, especially in the first year and a half he was here. I mean, he would walk himself out of a ball game. The pitch count would kill him. He'd throw 100 pitches in 4 1/3, and you had to go get him. But in 3 years with the Padres, 83 starts, 29 and 25, 3.15 ERA. Listen to the domination, though. 436 and 2/3 innings. He gave up only 319 hits. He walked 219, which was way too high, but he had 575 strikeouts. 575 strikeouts and 436 and 2/3 innings, and gave up 42 home runs. He's got a career record of 76 and 58 with a 3.19 ERA. Broke into the big leagues back in 2016 at 23 years of age. Right now they're saying, and depending on who you talk to, they're saying 4 years, 110 million. I've heard 5 years, 140 million. But Blake Snell I'd love to see him come back. I like him personally. I think he's a good guy, good teammate, and I'd like to see the Padres make a run. I don't think they can afford him, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But I definitely like your opinion on that. Okay, we're going to get out right now. We're going to talk to a guy that I love this guy. When he first came here, I said, well, it'll be interesting. We haven't had a new columnist with a Union Tribune in a long time. How's this guy going to fit in? Well, let me tell you, folks, this guy has fit in like a beautiful pair of shoes here in San Diego. He came in with the right attitude. When he came into San Diego, he came in with the right attitude. And what I mean by that, he wanted to learn as much as he possibly could about America's finest city. He went out and he talked to everybody that would talk with him. And he's built up a great viewership. People love reading his column. He's a columnist. He writes a lot of great human interest stories as well. And the thing that I love, this guy is not afraid to get out and roll up his sleeves. And if he doesn't know about something, he goes out and finds out about it. And I'm talking about a marvelous man on and off the media, Mr. Bryce Miller from the San Diego Union Tribune, their great columnist. And Bryce, welcome. How are you today?
Well, I'm good if I can figure out the technology on my camera. But other than that, if you can hear me okay, maybe we'll.
Yeah, I got you loud and clear. Do you hear me okay? Now we'll get Bryce set up again here real quick. But no, he's done a great job. He obviously covers the Padres and the Aztecs, but he's not afraid to go out and cover the offbeat sports story, which is always really, really good. I enjoy that. And I'm a big fan of Bryce Miller's. And anytime I see him in the press box, it's a good day. It's a good event, a big event, because he's always going to be out there. And he's very, very well liked, I might add, in the media. So we'll get Bryce back up here. I want to get his thoughts on the Padres, and I want to talk a little Aztec basketball. I'm sure he's probably going to the Aztec game today. Him and Mark Ziegler down there, usually right there at courtside, checking things out. So we'll get to him momentarily and get him rolling. That's a little bit different on podcasts to get guys up and running, but we'll get him up and running here shortly and be ready to roll. Bryce, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know if we're going to be able to get the camera to work. Every time I turn it back on, it's kind of glitchy. So,
okay,
if you can live with this, we can certainly charge ahead.
Oh, absolutely, we're fine. Let's talk a little bit about the Padres. Reporting today, Mike Shildt's going to get a new 2-year contract extension. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought it, not surprising. Thought that would happen. Again, for another season in his first with the Padres, He's led a team to the playoffs. That's all he ever did in St. Louis. He had the respect of the clubhouse. Even if it made us roll our eyes at times a little bit, he'd be a little Pollyanna-ish, and the sky was always blue. But that's just how he was wired. And once you learn that he was gonna approach every situation that day, almost willing optimism into existence. You also saw that team turn around, and you wonder how much that was because of his stewardship. There's always that debate. How much does a manager really impact the team? The talent is really what drives a Major League Baseball team. We all know that. But, it's probably worth a few wins here and there. And the way the Padres played, it may have been worth more than that. Certainly seems like the right guy. And you didn't want him going into another season, with question marks. And now he's got a couple of years to sit back and really shape this thing in an even bigger way, potentially, because it'll be a year or two.
Well, I'll be honest with you. There were a couple of nights where members of the media, one of them, your colleague Kevin Acey, asked him about being up and down, and I think at that point in time they were 51-50. And the way he answered that question, he goes, "Well, we won 7 out of the last 9 series." Well, great, you're still 51-50. He kind of showed that a little bit of a thin skin there, and I could only imagine if they'd lost 7 or 8 in a row how he might react to the media. But there were some nights where it's okay to say your team had a rough night and you'll bounce back tomorrow. But there were nights where it almost like he deflected that they even played poorly.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at. There were times you rolled your eyes a little bit at his reaction to some things, but I think he just internally operates in a way that I'm not going to say anything publicly. I'm not going to do anything publicly that could feed anything that's a negative. I remember on the field one day, I asked him, I was going to write a column saying that, as improbable as it sounds, a rookie at a new position, Jackson Merrill, was this team's MVP. And I said, you don't have to agree or disagree with that, but I just want to run that idea by you. And what's your thought? And he goes, this whole team's the MVP. And that was one of those moments where that's Mike Shildt being Mike Shildt. To a degree, he's right. But the spirit of the question, you knew it was about talking about, pinpointing one player who had an outsized impact on the Padres. But that's just Mike Shildt being Mike Shildt.
Bryce Miller, our guest here on the John Quintero Show on YouTube. Your thoughts on AJ Preller and what he was able to get done this year? I know he didn't win the Major League Baseball Executive of the Year. I certainly think he had to be in the running. I was actually a little disappointed that he didn't win it.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt he had his best season, all things considered. If you would tell someone, a potential voter for that at the beginning of the year, he was going to have to manage a team to 93 wins and a couple of runs short of the NLCS after cutting payroll $90 million, or maybe a little more than $90 million, trading Juan Soto, those factors alone, what he was able to do. What he got in that Soto deal, Michael King in particular, but more than that, Kyle Higashioka, I don't think anybody really thought when that deal happened that he would have, he would be able to play the kind of baseball he did for a stretch that really, really helped that team, gave them stability at a catcher position that they haven't had in a few years. And he's back to being a free agent. So that's one of the question marks. But just what he was able to do, going out early and getting Dylan Cease and Luis Arraez well before the trade line. So you got them for a longer chunk of the season. And we know what each of those two players did for most of the time. Cease had some up and down outings, especially near the end. But for the most part, he's somebody you had to have in that rotation. And again, Higashioka was a huge help. Luis Arraez won a batting title, his third with 3 different teams. You could go on and on, but just seems like almost every button he pushed worked.
And I want to talk about, what they're going to do this offseason and some of the Padre free agents. But Boy, I sit here on a Wednesday morning, and it's hard not to be bitter. I think the Padres really blew a golden opportunity to win the World Series this year. I really do. I mean, they had the Dodgers. They could have just put their foot on their throat, and to sit here and talk about how they could not score in 24 straight innings is mind-boggling.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. You can't if you would have said they're going to hold the Dodgers to a couple of runs in a win or go home game, you would take the Padres in that scenario every single time. But the inability to score runs over 2+ games changed the complexion of that series. They had the Dodgers backed into a corner. Now you've got to also, if you have that argument, which I think is a very reasonable argument to have, that they blew it, you also have to say the Dodger bullpen didn't blow it. What they did out of that bullpen, everyone knew that was a collection of arms that is incredibly deep, incredibly talented, but they were even more so down the stretch against the Padres. So the combination of those two things were fatal for San Diego. But they were the best contact team in baseball by, a margin of a percentage point. They had the best average in baseball over the Diamondbacks. Over the course of the year, offensively, they were very, very good, if not short on power in moments, but in terms of the contact, giving themselves a chance, putting the ball in play, hitting for average, they did all of that all year long better than any team, almost any team in baseball. That made it even more puzzling. But you're right, that was the worst time to hit an offensive skid down the stretch against the Dodgers. They're too good. You can't do that against a team that's that good.
And talent-wise, Dodgers appear to be going to be even better next year. We'll have to wait and see how everything factors in with guys coming back from injuries and what they're going to do during the offseason, who they're going to retain, who's going out the door, and who they're bringing in. Let's talk about the Padres. I've been saying on the podcast, I think with ball players being arbitration eligible, a guy like Fernando going to make an additional $9 million. He'll go from 11 to 20 million this year. I think the payroll's got to go up automatically. I'm figuring around 200 million. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they're and the one that really just you've got to again a roll your eyes moment. They still have one more year of paying off Eric Hosmer, which is part of it. It's 12.5 million, somewhere in that range. I forget what the exact number is, but yeah, just some of those budgeted increases for some players, arbitration eligible players who are going to make more money. They're already projected to be over that first competitive balance tax penalty threshold. Now, the reason they cut so drastically this year was to reset the clock on that. It progressively gets more expensive the more years you're, beyond that threshold, and then there are other thresholds above that one. So I think they're probably in a spot where they're willing to take a bit of a hit, just not the kind of hit they would have taken if they would have kept above that number and they weren't able to reduce payroll and reset that clock. But they're probably, for the reasons you mentioned and I ran through, there's probably not as much wiggle room as some might think for them payroll wise. They haven't really given a sense. AJ Preller had a Zoom call recently, and of course, I don't think anybody expected him to open up the books. I mean, they don't do that for the most part, and he in particular doesn't get into specifics like that. But they do have some room to operate. And the one thing, probably, if you're a Padres fan following this, even if they don't have a ton of room financially to poke around and see what they can do inside the game, he's one of the best deal makers in the game in terms of creativity. And again, that gets us back to getting Dylan Cease and Arise early. There are plenty of other examples of ways he's been able to find talent creatively if need be. So it makes it a pretty interesting offseason for sure.
All right, Bryce, I want to go through the Padre free agents. And I read a lot, and you do the same thing, and you hear these different projections, and some of them are just like mind-boggling. Because I don't think the Padres can break the bank on their free agents. I think Tanner Scott's as good as gone. I don't think we even need to talk about him. I think
Right.
he's earned the right to go out and make a ton of money. And what I heard was, probably in the neighborhood of 4 years, 56 million. But a guy like Jerkson Profar, who did a great job, 32 years of age. I don't know if he can repeat the remainder of his career what he did in 2024. And I'm hearing projections right now of 3 years, $45 million. I don't think the Padres can afford to pay him $15 million a year.
Yeah, that'll be a real question mark. The thing you don't know is he's made it clear, his teammates have made it clear. He likes being in San Diego. He's comfortable being in San Diego, but he didn't have a season like that to take a hometown discount, at least to a degree, I don't think. But I think he would be willing to maybe take a little less, maybe structure a contract in a creative way to try to stay if all things were equal, because he's played his best baseball later in his career here without a doubt. He's comfortable in the clubhouse. He's respected by the most veteran guys in that clubhouse, and for all those reasons, I think he wants to stay. The question is, how big a number is another team willing to put on the table for him to hit that line where he says, okay, I can't turn this down. I think teams should be, including the Padres, should be a little cautious about Profar because, he wasn't an all-star till his 11th season. Is this the outlier season? And does he regress back to the mean and look as he gets another year older, does he look like the player his career has said he is for the most part? I think if he's in San Diego, that's a reasonable fit, probably a smart fit for both groups. There weren't many left field options out there when they were looking a year ago. He was just sitting there as a free agent. It worked out well for them to pair, and they both benefited from it. So Padres definitely, I think, will try to get him back. But your question about the money is a good one.
Yeah, he's a 245 career hitter, but he's done a great job here in San Diego. Hey, Hassan Kim, coming off of
Yeah.
labrum surgery. Let's face it, he was not playing a great shortstop this year. Not like he did in 2022, when I thought he probably deserved to win the National League Gold Glove, and then he finally won it, moving over to second as utility guy in 2023. But he wasn't playing great at short. I don't know if being a free agent, he was putting pressure on himself or what, but I would tend to doubt he's coming back. I've heard projections on him, 3 years, 24 million, which is very affordable because he was due to make 8 million before he opted out of his mutual option and got a 2 million buyout. Do you see him coming back? Do you see the Padres really wanting to bring him back?
Well, I mean, they do have that leaves a big question at shortstop. I mean, for the most of his career, he's been, as you said, gold glove level guy, and that alone has value for them in that infield. I think you take a step back if getting older every day, Xander Bogaerts is over there. Bogaerts can play the position. That was his position before they shuffled him over to second base. But, I would assume Hassan Kim, even with a few hiccups this year, would still be your best defensive option. The question, I think, becomes what is he offensively or what is he not offensively? He was not, when healthy, he wasn't the kind of player he was a year before, when he seemed to have answered some questions about whether he could catch up with major league velocity, and he seemed to do that. And then last year, I'm not sure why you didn't see, a little bit of a pattern of him moving forward offensively. But then defensively, as you said, he wasn't as good as he was the season before. But maybe the business move is for him to opt out and get that 2 million, even if he came back for something close to that original number. I know for him, somebody who, the language barrier is there. It has to be important to him to be in a place where he feels comfortable. So it would be hard for him to leave, I think. I remember the first spring training in Peoria, I wrote about this. Manny Machado, first one to go over, put his arm around him, get the interpreter there, have him sit on the buckets around the batting cage as guys were hitting. And then he got, Tatis to come up and start befriending him. And he and Jerkson Profar have a great relationship and joke around all the time. Just because of that language barrier, to put him in a brand new clubhouse, that's hitting a reset button on that comfort level. And but if that number gets too high, I agree with you. I don't think there's enough proven there consistently over enough seasons to really stretch for him, especially when you've got other shortstops on the roster.
Okay, last Padre question. Then I want to get to a little Aztec basketball, football, and the turf at Snapdragon Stadium. Jackson Merrill had the best rookie year in the history of the Padre franchise. There was talk that they tried to get a long-term deal with him before he ever played his first major league game. Do you think the Padres are going to entertain that, or do you think they may wait one more year, considering they've got him under control for 5 more seasons?
Yeah, I think they'll try to get it done if they can, because in the long term, that's a way to save money by spending money now. Um, but if they can't get close, they've got the leverage to wait another season, as you said. But the longer this goes on, the more he proves himself, and I think he'll just continue to do that. To be honest, the more expensive this could get in the long run for the Padres. Um, I think he's on one hand, he was the one guy over and over and over. If you listen to interviews, talk to him, any of those things, he loved being on this team with the guys in that clubhouse, and even said after the season he was probably going to go down the very first day down there and just hang out at his locker, not even so much to clean it out, but he just, in the same breath, he said he wasn't going to do any more hitting because he'd never hit this much in his life and he needed to put the bat away. But what he didn't want to put away was hanging out with those guys every single day. So he's another guy that, and he contributed as much as anybody to that story I told earlier about the potential MVP of this team. I think he brought an energy level that was contagious to other guys, including veterans, including lots of other proven guys in that clubhouse who saw the way he played. um, Xander Bogaerts told me multiple times about how that guy was kind of the leader in terms of energy and all those sorts of things. And so there's a real value to him, and it's not just what the numbers on paper say. But he knows the longer he plays like this, the more money he could potentially make.
All right, Bryce, we got about 5 minutes here. I want to roll through. We got college basketball starting on Monday night, but it starts tonight here in San
Yeah.
Diego. You've got the Aztecs, a whole brand new team taking on UCSD, coming off a great season a year ago where they won 21 games. They've got a lot of new players. This game tonight at Viejas Arena is kind of crazy because I don't know what to expect out of either ball club tonight.
Yeah, welcome to the transfer portal. Welcome to the NIL era. I think this is what basketball teams at this level are going to look like. You want the young guys to succeed, but as soon as some do, some bigger program with a bigger NIL bank account is going to come in and poach them, and that's just the nature of it. And the one guy I think who's built really well for that is Brian Dutcher at San Diego State. He's not afraid to go out, roll up sleeves, do the work, find players. He knows what he's up against. He's not naive about what college basketball looks like right now. But yeah, almost an entirely new roster. Jaden Ledee's gone, Lamont Butler's gone, Darion Trammell's gone, Micah Parrish left, Elijah Saunders left. Those would have been, 5 starters and a bench piece right there. I mean, the start of that. So it's really interesting what that backcourt would look like. BJ Davis had that monster game against UCLA in the exhibition. Nick Boyd, who the Aztecs saw in the Final Four when he played at Florida Atlantic, he had a fractured foot. He had 18 points on 7 of 8 shooting in 13 minutes against Cal State San Marcos. But that's quality of the opponent factors into that a little bit, but just go out there against anybody and try to make 7 of 8 shots and score 18 points in 13 minutes. And then I wrote today, Reese Davis isn't back. He's probably got at least another month. He's got a stress fracture in his right foot. So that backcourt is going to kind of develop on the fly, but it's got a ton of talent. And, beyond there, just a ton of new pieces, including Wayne McKinney, who's interesting, who came over from USD, local prep kid who you've known about for a long time, John.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of new faces.
Yeah, well, I would imagine University of Iowa is going to be really good with NIL, considering you're an alum. I'm sure you wrote that big check for them this year.
Well, you pretty clearly don't know what sports writers make in San Diego. You've been misinformed, and I don't know who your sources are. But
well, I just have you on a very, very big pedestal. Hey,
okay.
let's talk about Aztec football. I know it was ugly. It was really bad last Friday night. up at Boise. But you know what? At times I've seen some growth in this football team. I mean, they had so many new players come in. I mean, they lost 42 players, they brought in 48. It's definitely a work in progress. I still think they can go to a bowl game. They got to win 3 out of 4. I think those are 3 of those games are very, very winnable. I don't think they can beat UNLV over at UNLV here in a couple of weeks. But your thoughts on Aztec football to this point and the job Sean Lewis is trying to get done?
Well, I think you're seeing the growing pains. I mean, brand new coach, brand new system. They want to play fast, but while playing fast, they're what, ninth or tenth in the Mountain West in penalties and penalty yards. Yet you see some of the price there is to pay for that. You know, starting a really young quarterback in Danny O'Neill. It's but the early schedule, Oregon State, Cal, Washington State, Boise State, they've had a really difficult early schedule. And as you know, you got a winnable game coming against New Mexico. And then, as you said, the rest of it plays out mostly favorably. And this team is getting a little more experience by the day. But yeah, the penalties were a big problem early. And then that system, you know, they're in maybe ninth in scoring offense and scoring defense in the Mountain West. So they've got to figure it out on both sides of the ball.
I said at the beginning of the year, especially after I saw them play that well, it was the second game they'd beaten Texas A&M Commerce. When I saw them play Oregon State, I go, you know what? If this team can go 6-6 and get to a bowl game or at least be bowl eligible, that'd be damn good in Sean Lewis's first year. And that's still in play. We'll see what happens Friday night against New Mexico because they do need to win 3 out of their final 4 to become bowl eligible. Okay, I want to get to this turf situation.
Yeah.
You know, I was down there, you know, for the Oregon State game. I've been there to a couple different games. I've walked on that turf. It's been awful. I watched a game a week ago that I couldn't get to. I watched it on TV and watching it on TV looked just terrible. And then we have the Wave walk the field a week ago on Thursday. The league, the NWSL deemed it unplayable. I mean, this is really mind-boggling. You got a brand new facility and you're having all kinds of problems with this turf. And you know what? I got news for them. There are going to be more and more events in there, especially with San Diego FC coming in 2025. They got to get this thing under control. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. You don't really know the why of it, even though Mark Ziegler on our staff wrote a story, the first one to really go at the situation with that turf, talking to the people involved and trying to understand it. He got as many answers as he could, but you still didn't walk away feeling like you knew what the fix for it was. I mean, is this just once the football season's over, is this just a start over on this turf? It almost feels like it, because if they haven't been able to make adjustments and get it playable, and like you said, Wave FC having to play on the road, and you can't imagine the concern that San Diego FC, the MLS banked on the San Diego market and everything that comes with it, the weather, the destination that it is. But if you don't get the field conditions, fixed, that's a bedrock competitive issue that just can't go on for longer. It's, even if you start over in this off season, they've got to get this thing right.
Well, the thing that I'm wondering about, I mean, they've got, some Aztec football games left. They got a couple of Aztec football games. They got the San Diego CIF Open Division, and then you got the Holiday Bowl. And I mean, it's one thing, watching a game on CBS Sportsnet. It's another being on, Fox and nationally and see the turf coming up. I mean, Danny O'Neill in that last home game during a timeout, they had to pull all the turf off of his face mask.
Yeah, it's the bottom line. I mean, I don't even know. It's a hard one to talk about because all you can say is it has to get fixed. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And like I say, it might have to be a complete reset at the end of the year here.
Yeah, it's not just the aesthetics of looking bad. You're talking about athletes, and athletes even in football, they blow their knees out even in non-contact, let alone now on a bad playing serve. That's just a bad look, a very, very bad look. I'll tell you what, and I'll let you go after this. considering they've got, I think, a very nice stadium, and there's no doubt there's some areas where they cut corners, and that's fine. Okay, I'm not a bells and whistles guy. I want to go out and watch a ball game, whether it's a soccer match or a football game or a rugby. Okay, but at the end of the day, they've got to get this thing squared away. They've got to figure out how to get more people in the stands. I mean, as good as I think this stadium is, I mean, there have been a lot of early mistakes as far as ticket pricing. Now the turf. I mean, they got to get this under control.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Hey, Bryce, thanks so much for the time. I would like to say it was good to see you. I saw you briefly there, but we'll get that camera going next time. And always a great pleasure, and keep up the great work.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
There you go. One of the classy guys in the San Diego media. Big fan of Bryce Miller. We got some questions out there. We'll take a few, and then we're going to get out of here and get on with our day. You can get on with your day, and I certainly appreciate you tuning in. A lot of good stuff from Bryce Miller there regarding our Padres, Mike Shildt. We're going to see where this free agency goes. But at the end of the day, Padres, I think, are going to have to make some trades. I think they're going to have to trade not Ethan Salas. Not going to do that. But you're going to have to make some trade. I'd like to move up Cronenworth myself. Chris, forget Snell. We're not going to sign him. We can't afford him. You know what? I know, but can't this guy dream a little bit? Can't I dream a little bit? I would imagine with Joe Musgrove being out, I mean, Joe's going to get his $20 million, whether he pitches or not. But teams have, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but teams have insurance on ball players when they sign them to a big deal. So I would imagine the Padres are going to have a little money from insurance money. They may have to reinvest that in other players that they bring in, but they should get some insurance money for Joe. Profar will give San Diego discount. You know what? I think you're probably right. The Red Devil NC. I like that. I think he probably would. Remember Profar? He walked away from 2 more years. He made about $16 million. And when he opted out that year, he became a free agent and signed with Colorado prior to the 2023 season. He could have been here and making, $8 million. Last year, he made 2.5 with all the incentives reached. I like Profar. I don't know if he can have another season like he did in 2024, but I like him. But again, he's a 245 career hitter, and he hit 280. Is he going to do that again as he gets older? I don't know. But I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Great show today. And always love the participation. You folks are fantastic. And again, we'll be on Friday. John Maffey from the Union Tribune. We always have John on to talk high school football, but we're going to talk to him about the Padres. And, the other thing people don't know about John Maffey, 2 things. Number one, he's an official scorer at Petco Park. He's in charge of, whether it's a hit or an error, what's an earned run, what's not an earned run. He's an official scorer. We can talk to him a little bit about that. And he's also, to this day, and he's done it forever and ever, he's the official statistician. He has a whole crew. He's a statistician for the Chargers. And he did it in San Diego. Him and his crew go up, and they actually work for the National Football League. They work for the NFL, not the Chargers, but they do the Charger games. So he's a very multi-talented writer, and always great to have Fee on. So he'll join us on Friday at 10 o'clock. But again, if you're a first time, please tune into the show Friday, but make sure you subscribe. Subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. We're trying to work our way towards 3,000. And again, you can follow me on Facebook at John Quintero and on X at Coach Quintero 44. Until Friday morning at 9:30, Coach John Quintero, have a great couple of days. Talk to you Friday, everyone.